Hey everybody, it's me again, Carla. Uh, we just finished week 5, if you can believe it. Just 2 weeks left, so I hope you still have enough energy left to get through this course. So hope it hasn't been too bad. Um, I don't. I'm like really pleased with everybody's work and can see that I kind of need to ramp up probably the rigor because I'm just giving too many full scores. So it's interesting on this side of education how that's a bad thing. But anyhow, so just a few concluding thoughts from week 5 that I just thought I'd share. So chapter 11 was about. Oh geez, I moved on to chapter 6 already. But chapter 11 was about measuring outcomes, and so uh, words of wisdom from me. I've been managing for a long time, and I like to think I do some leading too. Um, and over the years, I've learned a lot of hard lessons. But measuring outcomes is a really good lesson that I learned. And I think somewhere in the textbook it talks about the importance of managing. You have a tendency to manage what you measure. So it also offers clarity on what the expectation is. So in courses, just the last few years, probably the last 6, 7 years, we've been adding rubrics, and rubrics have really made a huge difference on how I teach and others teach, because as faculty, a lot of times when you're reading student work, you kind of discover what you're looking for while you're reading it, which is great for us, but for a student, it's not necessarily fair because you want to tell a student up front, this is what I'm looking for. So developing rubrics has really added a lot of transparency to how faculty grade, because it says up front, this is what I'm looking for. This is good performance, average performance and poor performance. So that you can make kind of an informed decision about how well you want to do the assignment. So I think there's a really good lesson to learn from that as you go back into the workplace that, for the most part, many of the people that work with you or for you now or in the future, they want to do a good job, but it shouldn't be a guessing game as to what you're looking for. So you want to be very clear on what the desired output looks like. You can use rubrics. They're not licensed by higher ed. You can use them anywhere. And I found them to be very good tools, not just in assignments, but I use a rubric for reviewing applications for admission. I use rubrics for evaluating faculty. I'd use a rubric with my kids if I could figure out, I'll probably just have time to develop and they probably would laugh at me. But anyhow, so many of you probably have heard of Edward Deming, who's big in the quality world back in TQM and such. And something that always stuck with me that he said, well, I think one of his 12 principles or something like that, is that managers and leaders should be managing employees' output. So not necessarily being concerned about how they do the work or where they do the work or those kind of things, but giving them the freedom to figure out what their approach should be. But focusing on this is what the outcome is. That has made a huge impact on the field of education, and I apologize for using this as an example, but it's like what I know best. So it's worked a lot in higher ed and even in online education, where prior to kind of the spread of online, you used to use seat time. So the amount of time that you sat in the classroom determined what you learned. So, and I know all of us can say that we sat many hours in a chair in a classroom and didn't learn squat, but sometimes there's like one single hour where the lecture or the exercise or the content just hit us and we learned huge. And that happens in online too. So, and it might be after an hour or two of reading or an assignment or a TED Talk or what have you, where you learn something incredible that might impact, your entire career. So there's not really an equivalent to seat time and output. So in the workplace, it's the same. You don't want to penalize people because they're not in their seat, so to speak, working the way that you want them to work. But you really want to be clear on what the expected output is, and then, when possible, give them the freedom to decide how to do the work and when to do the work. So I came into the office today at 11. I was home working at my dining room table from about 7:30 until like 10:30 when I left to come here. So somebody walking by my office could say, that dumb Carla, she's never here, she's never working, she's a lazy bum. But I hope what they're looking at is my output. So they're looking at, the courses I teach. They're looking at the evaluations that you guys provide me. They're looking at other outputs, other measures of my performance, not is my butt sitting in this office. So anyhow, another point just to make is whenever possible, you want to involve people in determining how you measure output too. So, it might not just be, units per hour or the quality of the work, but, you might want to say to a group, your team, what does good performance look like to you? And build in so that they have a say in it. And I'm sure that you'll learn a lot more about how they view quality work than if you didn't ask them. So another just kind of key point that I've observed over a long time working is that as you continue to grow, and I mentioned a lot of this in my feedback to your post, but as you grow and develop in your career, your personal development, your career growth and development, at some point isn't your supervisor's responsibility anymore. It falls on you. So, and that usually happens around like director positions and up, where people are less familiar with what you do, and they're more, they look more at areas of responsibility and maybe output instead of how you do your work. So you become more and more responsible for managing your own career growth. And if you don't assume that responsibility, you're going to wake up 5 years or so down the road and either be out of a job or find that you're, severely behind the times because you haven't been keeping up on what's going on. So you want to, first of all, just, develop measures for yourself. How do I know that I'm doing a good job? And then, we'll kind of go back to some of our prior learning modules or exercises, discussions, questions, is that you really want to develop these relationships with people where they'll give you candid comment. Because if you don't get this feedback on your performance, you're going to be walking around blind to what people, how they view you. And eventually, again, you could be finding yourself out of a job. So, so anyhow, the other thing is, and I don't think we've really talked about it yet, but this concept of 360s, so 360-degree feedback, and I know they kind of come and go with their popularity, and I don't know that you need to invest in any kind of formal tool. But again, it goes back to, are you seeking feedback from multiple levels within an organization, not just your supervisor, and not just your direct reports, but you want to seek feedback from peers, from service departments within your organization, from your customer, from the community. You want to try to get this 360 perspective on your performance. And then you paste all those together and you get an idea of where your strengths are and where some potential weaknesses or pitfalls might be. And then you can go to your supervisor, who might be, a VP or a CEO or even a board member, and maybe even have a talk with them or a mentor and just say, I've identified this as a weakness. Do you have ideas on how I could develop that, or can you provide some type of experience or access to this or what have you? So anyhow, I just want to make sure that your growth and development certainly doesn't stop after this program. In fact, I would choose to believe that it really just begins. So anyhow, not to freak you out, but that's how it is. So on to chapter 12. So this is the parity of healthcare model. I just loved your post and discussion. I thought it was just really superb. So again, the model shouldn't be anything of a surprise. Hopefully you've visited and talked about this, in pretty much every class you've been in. I don't know that I've never heard of the parity of healthcare model before this textbook, but oops, computer's going dead or to sleep. This is truly the complexity of healthcare is reflected in this model, and the complexity of leading and managing these organizations is reflected in these models. So if you're ever stuck at a cocktail party with nothing to talk about, people saying, "So what do you do again? I don't really get it." You can take a napkin and draw out the parity of healthcare model and describe it that way. So anyhow, just kidding. I'm sure you wouldn't want to do that, bore people to death. But anyhow, but I do think what you guys are embarking on is and have been invested in quite in depth in your career so far is working within a very complex industry. If you're building widgets or cars or other things, I mean, yes, those are complex fields, but I don't think any of them hold a candle to the complexity of healthcare. So if you get tired and overwhelmed, that's why. So I also really appreciated that Alan suggested that that the model also kind of highlights why the system is so fragmented. And I thought that was a really good contribution to the discussion also. I did think, and I think I'll modify this question next time around and just try to open it up looking at this from other systems perspectives. So though other systems of healthcare are quite different from that in the United States, I still think that the model applies. Maybe it's different in some perspectives, but I don't know that any country has it figured out, and that it's just simple. It's a very complex thing. So I also wanted just to say, I think it was Ashley that brought up or raised a concern about, so when you get done with this program, how do you stay in the loop with all the things that are going on in the system, and that in reality, 5 years down the road, everything in the system as we know it today could be completely different. So it's interesting from an educational perspective, is that a lot of times students want to spend a lot of time talking about current events, which current events are fun and they're important to talk about, but the foundation of the program needs to be something more solid and something that's going to last and exist and help you through your career. We can't just be continuing to talk about the ACA because the ACA actually already is being debated, and who knows how long it'll be around. So we want to break this program down so that we're introducing more fundamentals, and then trying to weave in current topics into it. So hopefully what you learn in the program is going to be with you for quite some time. However, to remain relevant and to stay current, you really do need to invest in quite a bit to keep your knowledge up to date. From my perspective, and again, I'm not working in the field of healthcare, so to speak, more education, is I belong to probably 4 different associations. I try to make it, I usually attend 2 of the annual meetings fairly regularly. There's webinars pretty much every month. I'm invested in those. I have another one of those tomorrow for a group I belong to. Listservs, journals, networking events, all kinds of stuff that you want to try to participate in to try to keep your knowledge up to date. Also, you want to charge your team. So whoever you're working with, you want to make sure you charge the team to stay current and to bring these ideas and perspectives to meetings so that the group can respond to them. If you're at a certain level within an organization, you want to have a board that's directing you. Tomorrow, the 4th of October, is the first meeting of the new advisory board for the HSA program. So we have 24 people that'll be participating in that conversation. And I worked with the dean's office to put together this very multidisciplinary group from all over the community and even outside the community. And my first charge to this group is you're responsible to bring all of that back into the program and to really help make sure that what we are as a program is relevant to practice. Because if we're producing students that have no value, then there's really no value for the program. So I'll use the advisory board. I use the faculty who would be my team. And I really, myself personally, and to the team, we talk about, any experience that you have, look at it and think, what can I do with that? So I was trying to think of an example. So this might seem a little corny, but I just have a few credit cards for different stores. Locally, I've been a loyal kind of Von Maur fan for a long time. It's a department store that's located in Rochester. The home base of Von Maur's is actually from Iowa, very close to where I lived. So just thought I'd share that. But anyhow, this whole concept of a credit card creates this loyalty with me. So I typically will go to Von Maur's first because I know that that I have a card, so they kind of recognize me as a special customer. I get free alterations. They package my stuff very well. I have no hassle returns. If I choose not to pay off the card right away, there's no interest. So as I interact with Von Maur's, I think to myself, this is a really pleasant experience. And then I'll go to a doctor's office and I might have a pleasant experience, and most often I don't. It's like, well, this is a very unpleasant experience. So then you start to think, what could my doctor's office learn from Von Maur's? And so my brain just starts thinking like that and thinking, if I'm loyal to a department store for purchases of clothing and shoes and such, what more loyalty could I have to my own doctor's office? So what can doctor's offices learn from how retail manages these relationships? So I mean that's just kind of a crude example, but if you look at it, retail has created more and more and more loyalty programs. Healthcare could learn a lot from them, and I think they're already kind of catching on to it. But there's already this built-in loyalty. It's like, if you keep me healthy, if you save the life of one of my family members, if you treat somebody that I love, obviously I'm going to feel some loyalty. So let's deepen that relationship. So anyhow, everything I experience, I keep thinking, well, that was pleasant. I really enjoyed that. And then I think, I wonder how education can learn from that. How can we develop a loyalty program for students where it's not just, give us your tuition money and we'll throw you in a class and good luck, But how do we create this loyalty to this program, this university? So, and there's a lot of people who are thinking about those type of things. Anyhow, let's see. Final chapter 13. I highlighted an exercise on charisma. I compared it to transformational leadership. Honestly, it really didn't have a lot to do with transactional. It was more, I wanted to highlight this whole idea of charisma. Several of you identified two really awesome TED Talks, which I just really enjoyed watching. One of them I had seen, but one of them I had not. So anyhow, if you haven't watched all those TED Talks, I would. I don't think there's a poor one in the batch, but in past courses I've taught on leadership, we've read a couple articles on being aware of leaders that are not necessarily altruistic and out for the good of people. Um, if you look at people like Hitler and Osama bin Laden, I mean, could you say that they're good leaders? I think obviously they're very good leaders. They led people into some incredible outcomes. But were those outcomes for the good of mankind and the good of people? Probably not, right? So I just wanted you to be aware of the power of charisma, um, and to just be aware of it. I think, especially as those of you who have advanced degrees and now you're adding another one to it, what I hope that you leave this program with is the ability to think critically. And it doesn't mean that you're a negative person. It just means that you um, are skeptical and you evaluate everything that people say. And I'm a feeling person on the MBTI, but I am very critical when I listen to speakers. And the more smooth um, uh, and desirable they are, the more critical I look at them, because I want to make sure that where they're where they're saying that they want to take us is where um, I believe this organization or institution or profession or industry wants to go. So I think right now many countries and many healthcare systems are in a very vulnerable state. We really, in the United States, I can speak that we are in the need of some transformational leadership to come in and really pull the members of these stakeholders, this parity that we talked about, these stakeholders to the table and really hammer out some really important decisions about what is our goal, what are we trying to achieve. And I really think that a really good leader could do that. But I just want people to be critical and really look, sincerely at what's being said. I don't want any of us to be duped, and for something to be created that doesn't match what we believe is good for the country or the people. So um, anyhow, uh, just some concluding thoughts. So I've been kind of nut about charisma for a long time. So it's one of my biases. So I am like hypercritical of people, and once I believe that I can trust them, then I holistically will follow or step up and help them lead. But I think it's really important, especially if you're somebody who's invested in all this education. Um, there are a lot of followers who are going to be looking to you for your leadership skills, and you need to be wary of who you're listening to. So anyhow, so you guys are working on week 6. So I think it's a little bit lighter of a load this week, just 2 assignments. And then week 7, I can't even remember, but I know this is when the final paper's due. Your final leadership model is posted. So yeah, so your final leadership model. I did change that assignment, so please read the description a little bit more carefully so you don't lose any points on it. And then at the end of the course, the very last day, your summary of your interview is due. If you're running into any problems with that at all, please be in touch now. Again, I'm very happy to provide extensions, but I don't accept late work. So sorry about that. So anyhow, I hope things are going well, and you get outside and enjoy some of the fall in between getting all this work done. So take care. Have a good day. Bye-bye.